Everyone in Willow Creek used to call him crazy. They laughed behind his back, joked at the diner, and waved at him from across the street with a smirk that said, "There goes Doomsday. John again." But on the night 90% of the world died, the only one who wasn't laughing was John Miller, because he was the only man who had prepared for the unthinkable. For years he had felt the world trembling long before anyone else noticed. Not literally, but in that quiet instinct some people carry, the same way farmers feel rain coming or sailors sense storms before they break. Under the surface of everyday routines, school drop-offs, truck repairs, Sunday pancakes, John sensed fragility. Not panic, not paranoia, just a subtle vibration that whispered, "This won't last forever." To the 3,000 residents of Willow Creek, tucked between golden fields and pine woods, he was simply the friendly mechanic who fixed everyone's transmissions and waved from his porch with a gentle smile. But behind those kind eyes was a man who saw danger where others saw comfort. It hadn't begun with panic. It began with observation, political instability, fractured supply chains, strange outbreaks, technology failing in ways experts didn't fully explain, dust storms in places that shouldn't have dust storms, floods where rain was once rare, little things that didn't mean much alone, but together, they painted a pattern he couldn't ignore. Then came the outbreak. Not the world-shaking COVID from decades before, but a smaller mutation, a quieter one, reported briefly on the East Coast. A cluster of aggressive respiratory infections, a few deaths, government reassurance, then silence. Everyone forgot about it. John didn't. That was the moment something clicked. The line between order and chaos was hair-thin. And when it snapped, people would be the real danger. While neighbors were buying new tractors or remodeling their kitchens, John was buying survival books, water purification systems, freeze-dried food, antibiotics, solar components, off-grid manuals, deep well guides. He studied at night after closing the auto shop, highlighting every page until they turned soft and wrinkled. His wife Emily watched him with curiosity and concern. She had married a steady man, quiet, patient, grounded. But this was something she didn't recognize. Still, he wasn't manic. He wasn't spiraling. He was building something, slowly, methodically, with purpose. After 2 years of research and saving, he bought 12 acres of land 30 miles outside town. People assumed it was for hunting or fishing. He never corrected them. Sometimes the safest truth is the one people invent themselves. Emily thought it was another phase, until the deliveries began. Pallets of steel, reinforced concrete, wiring, filters, water tanks, tools, and no contractors. Not a single truck except his own. He built everything piece by piece using nights and weekends and vacation days, sweating through summers and shivering through winters, until something enormous and hidden took shape beneath the soil. The girls, Sarah and Lily, were still young when he first let them climb down the ladder into the unfinished chamber. It was nothing but a cold concrete shell then, a hollow space lit by a single trembling bulb. Dust floated like ash in the air. It smelled of steel and cement and ambition. "This," he told them, smiling in a way Emily hadn't seen in years, "is where we'll be safe." Safe from what? Emily wondered. Safe from people, John answered silently. Over the next several years, the space transformed from a crude chamber into something extraordinary. The walls thickened with layered steel and concrete thick enough to withstand explosions. Air filtration tunnels wound behind the structure like hidden veins. A deep well was drilled straight through the earth, 80 meters down, to reach an untouched aquifer. Triple filtration ensured the water would stay clean, even if the outside world turned toxic. Then came the food. He calculated calories like a scientist, 2,000 per adult per day, 1,600 per child, multiplied by 4 people, multiplied by 5 full years. He stocked over 6,000 freeze-dried meals, vacuum-sealed grains and oats and rice, cans of tuna and chicken and vegetables, dehydrated meats, powdered eggs, even peanut butter stored where sunlight never touched it. He rotated everything annually, keeping meticulous labels. Emily once joked that if society survived, they could open a convenience store. John didn't laugh. He was too busy counting inventory. The hydroponic garden was next. LED panels dripping pink light, roots suspended in nutrient-rich water, lettuce and herbs and cherry tomatoes sprouting in metal trays. Emily realized then that this wasn't just survival. This was living. Human beings needed fresh food, not just for bodies, but for minds. Electricity came from redundancy. Solar panels hidden under wooden slats, a small wind turbine behind a cluster of maples, a diesel generator locked inside a soundproof underground chamber. 10,000 liters of water waited in steel tanks. Medical supplies filled drawers, antibiotics, sutures, saline, antivirals, books lined shelves, math, mechanics, medicine, classic novels. And only one entrance existed. A hatch disguised as part of the shed's floor, impossible to see unless you already knew where to step. The girls understood the rule before they even understood why. No one could ever know about the bunker. Not friends, not teachers, not neighbors. No one. By the time it was complete, the town laughed openly. Doomsday John, they called him. End of the world mechanic. But John didn't care. Laughter was harmless. What was coming wouldn't be. Then one night during dinner, a news segment flashed briefly on the screen. A highly transmissible mutation. Unusual respiratory failure. Officials claim there is no cause for alarm. John froze mid-bite. Emily watched fear flicker across his face. The girls argued in the background about a bedtime story. Life felt normal. For 2 weeks, hospitals across multiple countries collapsed at alarming speed. Scientists begged for calm. Governments scrambled. Videos leaked showing chaos. Stretchers lining hallways, exhausted nurses unable to stand, morgues overflowing. Then U.S. cities went into lockdown. Supermarkets emptied. Emily's school switched to remote learning overnight. Churches closed. People began masking again, but this time without jokes. John had stopped smiling entirely. The girls noticed. "Daddy, are you scared?" Lily asked one night. He knelt, brushing a curl from her cheek. "I'm not scared," he whispered. "I'm ready, and I'm going to keep you safe." But safety was slipping away faster than he could track. By week 4, 90% of infected people died. Emergency services vanished, power grids flickered, sirens wailed without reason, windows shattered in the night. Desperation chewed through the town like wildfire. Then, one morning, the emergency broadcast system went silent. Static. Nothing else. Emily stared at the screen. "John, what does that mean?" "It means," he answered quietly, "we have less time than I hoped." And he was right, because 2 days later, just after sunset, someone hammered on their front door hard enough to shake the frame. Not a knock. A demand. John's blood ran cold. He motioned for Emily to take the girls. He peeked through the side window and felt his stomach drop. Michael Turner, a man he had known for 20 years. Or at least the broken version of him remained. Gaunt, desperate, wild-eyed, and holding a gun. "John!" he yelled. "Open the door!" Emily gasped. The girls froze. John opened the door just enough to keep the chain tight. "Mike, what happened?" "You have a bunker," Michael rasped. "I know you do. Everyone thought it was a joke, but I know you." "My family is dead, John. I need somewhere to go. You have to take me." John shook his head slowly. Calm. Controlled. "There's no bunker, Mike. Just stories." "Don't lie to me." Michael slammed the door so hard the frame cracked. "You prepared. You always prepared. Tell me where it is." His voice broke. The gun trembled. Emily stifled a scream. Then Michael raised the gun again, and John acted. In one explosive movement, he shoved the door wide, knocking Michael backward. He grabbed the gun barrel, twisted sharply, forcing the weapon downward as it fired into the floor. The blast echoed through the house. The girls screamed. Emily shielded them. Michael collapsed, sobbing. "Why not me? Why not save me too? John's heart cracked. Because the bunker had room for 4. Only 4. His family. Or death. There was no 5th option. He left water near Michael, placed a blanket beside him, whispered a quiet apology, and turned to Emily. It's time. We leave tonight. She didn't argue. She simply nodded. Under a moonless sky, they fled. John had packed the truck long before that night, not because he knew the exact moment they'd leave, but because he had always felt the day would arrive without warning. Food rations, water, medical kits, blankets, ammunition, a field repair toolkit, and a hidden compartment beneath the back seat, everything ready with quiet precision. As the engine rumbled to life, far too loud for John's liking, Emily pulled the girls close in the back seat. They trembled, but no one cried. Shock had numbed their fear. The streets of Willow Creek looked like the bones of a once-living town. Houses sat hollow, windows shattered, doors swinging in the cold wind. Overturned mailboxes, abandoned bicycles, garbage bags torn open by stray animals. Every shadow looked like a threat, every darkened porch a warning. At one intersection, an SUV burned with a slow, smoldering fire, flames whispering as they consumed the last scraps of upholstery. John maneuvered carefully around it, tires crunching broken glass. Emily stared out the window. Do you think anyone's still alive here? Some, John whispered, but not in their right minds. On the outskirts of town, things worsened. Smoke rose from distant fields. A group of men, figures lit only by the flicker of a gas station fire, stood around with improvised weapons. John instinctively turned off his headlights and drove past them in near darkness. Even without seeing his face, he could feel their hollow eyes tracking the movement of the truck. At mile 7, the road was blocked by a tangle of tree limbs and metal debris. A sign hung from a rope. Turn around or die. John felt his heartbeat hammering. Turning around wasn't an option. We're going off-road, he said softly. Hold tight. The truck lurched violently as he veered into a drainage ditch, climbing up the slope into an open field. Grass thrashed beneath the tires. Rocks rattled the undercarriage. The girls clutched each other. Emily braced herself with one hand against the dashboard and the other shielding the girls from instinct. The ditch spat mud behind them, but the truck kept moving. When they finally reached the road again, the engine sputtered like an old man catching his breath. John stroked the steering wheel gently, murmuring, "Come on." Not now. The truck obeyed. At mile 12, a lone figure appeared in the middle of the road, waving frantically. A man, barefoot, filthy, tears streaking down his face. His voice carried through the night. "Help! Please! My family is... Please!" Emily reached toward John, a reflex born of compassion. But John sped up. The man's screams trailed behind them like ghosts carried by the wind. Emily pressed her hands over her face as silent tears rolled down. Sarah turned her head away. Lily stared at the floor of the truck, trembling. No one spoke for at least 5 miles. Desperation was everywhere, and desperation kills faster than disease. By mile 23, the landscape changed. Houses gave way to farmland. Fences sagged. Barns leaned like tired giants. The night fell quieter, but not safer. The silence itself felt predatory. Then finally, mile 30. The silhouette of their shed appeared as a dark shape against the faint pre-dawn horizon. Emily gasped, covering her mouth. Sarah let out a whimper of relief. Lily whispered, "We made it." But John didn't celebrate. Relief was a luxury. He stepped out of the truck with practiced caution. He scanned the ground. Footprints, tire tracks, disturbed branches. Nothing. Wind moved through the tall grass like waves. He opened the shed carefully. Dust, hay, old tools, everything exactly as he left it. He pushed aside a stack of boards and exposed the hidden hatch. A deep breath. A final moment above ground. Cold air rose from the darkness below. "Everyone in," he said. Emily descended first, helping the girls down the ladder. John sealed the hatch behind them with a heavy metallic thunk. For the first time since the world ended, they were safe. The bunker swallowed them into its steady, humming heartbeat. The air was cool, crisp from the filtration system. Lights glowed softly, mimicking early dawn. The girls curled up on their bunks, bodies shaking from adrenaline and exhaustion. Emily leaned against the wall, eyes closed, breathing hard. John moved with urgency, checking gauges, flipping switches. Water pressure, stable. Battery storage, full. Ventilation, optimal. Temperature controls, normal. He had rehearsed this moment for years, and still, it hit him with an overwhelming weight. The world above was gone. This underground chamber was now their universe. Their first night was restless. Emily lay awake, tracing patterns on the blanket, listening to the rhythmic hum of the air system. The girls clung to each other, seeking comfort in the familiarity of shared warmth. "Do you think anyone else made it?" Emily whispered. John stared at the ceiling. "Some," he said quietly, "but not many." The silence that followed was thick with grief. Routine became their lifeline. Every morning the lights brightened slowly, simulating sunrise. The girls made their beds, brushed their teeth, stretched. Breakfast was simple: oatmeal, dried fruit, rehydrated milk. Bland but sustaining. Then school. Emily taught math, reading, science. John taught survival, how to replace water filters, test batteries, clean ventilation ducts. "You won't always have me," he told them. "Knowing how things work keeps you alive." Sarah learned quickly, hands steady, mind sharp. She began checking hydroponics with the precision of a young engineer. Lily, softer but resilient, took naturally to first aid, memorizing doses and treatments. They grew older inside those metal walls. At night, John and Emily often sat together in the dim light, the quiet between them heavy. "Sometimes," Emily whispered once as he repaired a cracked relay switch, "I feel like we didn't escape the world. We just brought its ghosts with us." John paused, meeting her eyes. "We survived it," he said softly. "That's enough for now." But survival carries its own weight. The second year was their darkest. Isolation pressed against them like rising water. Days blurred. Emily suffered panic attacks, sudden waves of suffocating fear. John would hold her until her breathing steadied, whispering reassurances he wasn't sure were true. And then she fell sick. It started with a cough. Harmless, they thought. But in the bunker, illness was a predator. It spread easily. It lingered. Within 48 hours, Emily was burning with fever, trembling under blankets, drifting in and out of consciousness. John worked tirelessly, administering antivirals, humidity treatments, fluids, cold compresses. Sarah read aloud to her mother, voice quivering. Lily sat by the water tank, filling cups with shaking hands. For 12 days, Emily battled death. For 12 days, John barely slept. For 12 days, the girls lived on the edge of loss. On the 13th day, her fever broke. John stepped into the mechanical room, braced both hands against the wall, and cried for the first time since the world ended. Years passed. Systems aged. Supplies dwindled slowly. The girls transformed into young women, capable, resilient, shaped by hardship. Emily painted a mural on one wall. Green vines, bright flowers, swirling across the metal like a promise of life. But something else grew heavy in the air. They had outgrown the bunker. John felt it first. A subtle shift, an instinct he recognized from long before the collapse. The bunker had kept them alive. But now, it was holding them back. They needed the sky again. One night, long after the lights dimmed, Emily whispered, "We can't stay buried forever." John took her hand. "Tomorrow," he said, "we prepare." They inventoried supplies, packed backpacks, folded blankets, checked tools. The girls practiced dismantling and folding the portable solar charger. Emily gathered notebooks filled with 5 years of memories. When everything was ready, they gathered beneath the sealed hatch. John rested his hand on the cold metal. It felt heavier than ever, like the world itself pressed down on it. "Stay behind me," he whispered. He turned the wheel, pushed upward, and sunlight flooded in. Raw, blinding, warm. The girls shielded their eyes. Emily inhaled deeply, tears forming instantly. The world had changed. The grass was wild and tall. Trees stretched higher than before. Animals had reclaimed the land. The shed roof had collapsed. Ivy crawled across their old home. Nature didn't mourn humanity. It replaced it. With every step they took, the past peeled away. The calendar still hung on the wall, frozen in the month they fled. Dust-coated furniture. Lily found one of her childhood drawings still taped to her old bedroom wall. John stood silent, absorbing loss and acceptance in equal measure. They could not stay. He unfolded an old map. Pinned to a post outside their home was a weathered note. "If you survived, head north. A settlement exists. Hope lives. 70 miles. Emily pressed a hand to her chest. John folded the note gently. The girls looked at him with cautious hope. "There's only one way to find out," he said. And they began walking north. The road north felt like walking through the skeleton of a world that once breathed. Asphalt cracked open like old wounds. Tree roots twisted through pavement. Birds nested in traffic lights that no longer blinked. Weeds towered through intersections where cars once waited impatiently for green lights. Civilization had exhaled its last breath, and nature rushed in to claim the space it left behind. For the first few days, none of them spoke much. They were listening, learning. The world had a new sound now, one made of wind and rustling grass and distant animals instead of engines and conversations. Emily walked with her head slightly tilted upward, as if memorizing the way sunlight filtered through leaves. The girls sometimes whispered to each other, pointing out birds or mushrooms or tracks in the soft dirt. John walked ahead, scanning the horizon, every sense sharpened by responsibility. Even though danger was now less human and more environmental, he felt its presence. Not fear, awareness. He had lived too long underground to take the open sky for granted. On the fourth day of walking, they reached what remained of a small town. The welcome sign lay on its side, half swallowed by vines. Storefronts were gutted, windows shattered like broken teeth. A grocery cart lay overturned in the street, its wheels locked in rust. A child's bicycle leaned against a lamppost, completely wrapped in ivy, as if nature had tried to pull it into the earth. Lily ran her fingers along the bicycle seat. "Do you think someone tried to come back here?" John shook his head. "No. When the world fell apart, people ran to the cities. They thought help was coming." "Did it?" she asked quietly. "No." They walked past murals painted years ago, bright flowers, hopeful slogans, smiling faces. The colors had faded, peeled by weather and time, but something about them still pulsed with stubborn optimism, like ghosts whispering, "We tried. We really tried." Farther north, they found footprints hardened into mud, old campfire sites, abandoned shelters made from tarps and scrap wood, a torn jacket caught on a fence post, signs that people had passed through, signs that they weren't totally alone. The discovery made the girls walk a little faster. That night, they camped under the open sky for the first time in 5 years. It felt almost sacred. The stars were brighter than they remembered, thousands of them, shimmering like diamond dust across the velvet darkness. The kind of sky people used to photograph but never truly look at. Sarah lay back on her blanket, eyes wide. "I forgot the stars looked like this." Lily snuggled beside her. "It's like the sky grew more stars while we were gone." Emily smiled softly. "They were always here. We just spent too long looking down instead of up." John didn't speak. He was staring at the horizon, watching the gentle flicker of distant lightning. Heat lightning, harmless but still a reminder that the world could shift at any moment. He whispered, almost to himself. The world didn't end. It changed. On the 7th day, they reached the river. The bridge they once used had collapsed into twisted metal skeletons that jutted out of the water like broken ribs. The river rushed around them, dark and cold and alive. "How do we cross?" Lily asked. John scanned the banks. A cluster of fallen trees created a narrow, natural walkway. "We go one at a time," he said. "Careful." Emily crossed first, arms outstretched for balance, boots slipping slightly on the mossy logs. Sarah went next, steady and determined. Lily followed, giggling nervously whenever the river splashed against her legs. John crossed last, the weight of responsibility sitting heavily on his shoulders. Midway across, he paused. Cold water rushed around his boots. He dipped his hands into it, letting the icy shock spread through his body. It hit him like truth. They had survived the end of the world. Now they had to learn how to live again. On the 12th day, they found the second sign, fresh, written in bold black marker on a piece of plywood nailed to a tall pine tree. Survivor settlement, 12 miles north. Food, shelter, medical aid, you are not alone. Emily pressed her hand to her chest, tears welling. "It's real, John, it's really real." Sarah's smile was immediate, bright, unrestrained, the kind a child should always have. "We're close." Lily grabbed her sister's hand. "Do you think there are kids? People our age?" "Probably," John said. "People find ways to survive." And for the first time, his voice didn't carry the weight of fear, only hope. They picked up their pace. By late afternoon, the sky began shifting into soft pinks and golds. They climbed a ridge, following a narrow trail etched into the earth by countless footsteps. At the top, John stopped abruptly. "Emily, girls, look." What lay beyond the ridge took their breath away. A valley, but not an empty one. Smoke rose gently from several chimneys curling into the sky like ribbons. Small wooden houses, hand-built, sturdy, simple, dotted the landscape in carefully organized clusters. Gardens grew in neat rows. Solar panels lined a hillside. Wind turbines spun lazily in the breeze. And people, actual human beings, walked between the structures, carrying baskets, tending crops, gathering firewood, a woman herding goats, a man repairing a wheelbarrow, a child chasing a dog through the grass. Life, not the desperate, frantic survival they had escaped, but peaceful, deliberate living. Emily pressed a hand to her mouth, tears streaming silently. Sarah whispered, "We found them." Lily's voice trembled. "It's really real." John didn't move at first. He just stood there, letting the sight wash over him, grounding him like an anchor dropped after years adrift. Humanity hadn't been extinguished. It had been reduced, refined, forced into something smaller, quieter but still burning. The girls leaned into him, one on each side. Emily slipped her hand into his. John finally exhaled, a long, trembling breath that carried 5 years of weight. "We're home," he said quietly. Not because it was familiar, not because it was perfect, but because it offered what they had lost: community, future, hope. The four of them walked down the ridge toward the settlement, toward smoke and voices and gardens growing, toward a world reborn from ashes, toward humanity's second beginning.